Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. I want to talk today about Mayor Nenshi, or Mayor Nenshit, as I call him, because I'm starting to get a little worried about what's going to happen if he secures the nomination to run the NDP as the head of the party for Alberta. Now, I like Danielle Smith. I've had Danielle Smith on the show. I've said multiple times that I have never felt like my vote went further in the last 10 years than when I voted for Danielle Smith. I think she's done a fantastic job. I still support Danielle Smith and will continue to support Danielle Smith. Huge problem I have with Mayor Nenshi. And we're going to get into it. And why I'm worried. Part and take from what I seen over from Cian Bexte over the weekend, and I want to get into that right off the bat so we can talk about where we could be headed, where Alberta could potentially be headed. Now, this picture popped up from Cian Bexte on the weekend, and it's things that make you go, and it's a picture of Mayor Nenshi sitting at the World Economic Forum. Now, when I first saw this picture, which was forwarded to me, one of our community members, CB Fixes All, I said, there's no way that's real. It's got to be Photoshop, because to my knowing, or to my knowledge, I wasn't aware that Mayor Nenshi had anything to do with the World Economic Forum. It wouldn't surprise me, but I did a little digging, and boy, I was oblivious. I got to admit, I really dropped the ball on this one, because if you look on the World Economic webpage, Mayor Nenshi, former mayor of Calgary, 2010 to 21, City of Calgary, bachelor's and honors degree in commerce, University of Calgary, MPP, Kennedy Fellow, John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University, former consultant, McKinsey & Company, mayor of Calgary since 2010, entrepreneur, community leader, associates professor, nonprofit management, Bissett School of Business, Mount Royal University winner, World Mayor Prize 2014. Now, all of that, just his basic resume. There isn't even a photo of him on here, which is different from good old twitchy witch of the WEF, Crystia Freeland. And people might say, well, Derek, there's people who aren't a part of the WEF who have their information listed on the World Economic Forum's website. The big problem is that as I dug into it, I found that Mayor Nenshi back in 2014 spoke at the World Economic Forum. The mayor was at the World Economic Forum in Davos to talk about building resilience to natural disasters, again, going back to the 2012, I believe it was, flooding in Calgary. He sat on a panel of representatives from several countries, including Haiti and the Philippines. Mayor Nenshi spoke about a diversion tunnel expected to cost the city millions of dollars, and he said such costs are hard to justify when there are other projects that need funding, especially when such a tunnel would not be used unless there is another flood. Well, I don't see the problem in preparing for natural disasters, because if you remember, or if you were around Calgary or looked at the news around 2012 and saw the floods that were going on, it was devastatingly horrible for Calgary. It crippled the downtown core. It cost millions in damage. And essentially, this is better than the construction projects he put through as what he constituted as city art, which was directed towards First Nation peoples and also considered to be quite offensive because they didn't do their research before putting it through. So he sat at the World Economic Forum to talk about flood mitigation. But then back in 2011, so before he even sat down to talk about it, Mayor Nenshi deemed young global leader for the World Economic Forum. Our city's mayor has been given some international recognition. Mayor Nenshi had been named a young global leader by 2011's World Economic Forum. He was one of the 190 picked out of a group of 5,000. Klaus Schwab has his eyes on Alberta. He wants that energy. He wants to get rid of the energy so we can eat the bugs, own nothing, and be happy. The forum recognizes leaders for their potential to contribute to shaping the future of the world. That's the most scariest sentence I've ever read in a news article in my life. Came right out of the blue, very excited to win, but even more excited that it allows entry into a pretty elite international group for me to be able to tell a story about Calgary, says Nenshi. This is the man who put through harsh lockdown measures during the pandemic. He said that anybody protesting the lockdowns was a white supremacist. Nenshi, this man is a cancer on Calgary. He destroyed this city. He destroyed business in this city. He destroyed opportunity in this city. And now it's all starting to come together. Now it's all starting to make me wonder what's going to happen as we move forward, as this Marxist heads for the top job in the province. And a lot of people are going to say, hey, Derek, he doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell. I kind of believe that, and I've talked about that before, but I'm going to get into why I'm a little scared about that. But first, I want to cover Cian Bexte putting out, in regards to the debates this last week, Nenshi is angling to make Alberta NDP the pro-Ottawa party. NDP leadership now had Nenshi is crafting his campaign around the idea of unity, but instead of uniting Albertans together, he's hoping to unite Edmonton and Ottawa, which, of course, you know, Edmonton, due to its younger population and pro-LGBT community, they have vast numbers with the NDP. He posted his fantasy on Sunday to socials. The sense of optimism I felt in the last 6 weeks is palatable. We've been conditioned to be against Ottawa, against frontline workers, against our neighbors. It's time for us to be for something, for Alberta, for all of us, it read. Cian tweeting out, excuse me, what? And now, again, he's got his speech in there. And again, I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm not going to drag into the speech of the video. It's basically what is set up here. Saying that everybody's against Ottawa. Well, yeah, look at our living conditions. Look at the taxes we're incurring. Look at all the small business owners that have now had capital gains taxes put on top of them and increased to the point that they now have to justify what to do with their business. In fact, I had my local hot tub technician come over to my property over the weekend, and I was talking to him about business and asking him how things were going. To which he told me, I took the first raise in my salary that I've taken in 15 years. To justify the difference in the economic downturn. And he said, by the time I was taxed, I actually lost money compared to when I had less of a salary. So I essentially took the extra money to just give it back to the government. He says, I can't afford to live anymore. I can't afford to run my business anymore. I can't work in Alberta. They want to shut us down, he said. I can't do it anymore. I'm just not as busy because I'm worried about getting taxed. How's that for growth? How is that to encourage business that if you've got an idea, if you've got a plan, if you've got a good package together to run a company or a good marketing strategy, you still will not succeed because the government constantly has their boot on your neck? How do you encourage growth? Justin Trudeau talks about building homes, about allowing businesses to thrive. We're not going to tax middle-class Canadians. You're going to tax all the small business owners. They have nowhere to go. The platitude echoes from his purple branding strategy that he trotted out during his campaign in 2010 to become Calgary's mayor. Again, that's part of what makes me a little scared. When he said he was a combination of NDP orange and conservative blue. There is no middle ground. There is no middle ground. You can't be half and half. This isn't coffee cream. This is very different sides of the spectrum. You're either an NDP or you're a conservative. And I can tell you right now, from living in Calgary under this man's regime, it was not conservative in the least. His current Unite strategy is much bolder, as polls shows that Alberta remains staunchly opposed to the federal Liberals and appreciate the United Conservatives Party hardline against them. Notably, the UCP has won multiple Supreme Court decisions after taking Ottawa to court for what judges ruled as unconstitutional attempts to regulate Alberta. Again, we're talking about the No More Pipelines bill. We're talking about the plastics ban. Of course, we got a tweet from friend of the channel here, Marty up north. Nenshi's arrogance is on a whole new level. He's basically telling the audience that he had to come out of retirement to fix all of the UCP screw-ups, save the NDP, and put the province back on track. Moreover, the federal Liberals have imposed a carbon tax that the majority of Albertans strongly oppose. Nenshi is one of the 5 remaining candidates for the leadership position, along with Jody Stonehouse, Sarah Hoffman, Kathleen Ganley, and Gil McGowan. I'd honestly like to see it come down to Gil, because I think he'd drop the ball hardcore, and that would be good entertainment. Currently, the leader, Rachel Notley, announced in January that she's stepping down after a new party leader was chosen. It says in 2010, Nenshi became the first Muslim mayor of a large North American city. He won 3 Calgary elections, before announcing he would not seek re-election in 2021 when it was widely expected he would lose if he ran again. The reason he would lose is because he'd hiked taxes. Jeez, there's my dyslexia. My lysdexia is kicking in. He hiked taxes so high, and he instituted so many woke policies at the time, people said, get out of here. We can't do it anymore. Part of the problem with Nenshi running, and there's nothing wrong with the Muslim community. I don't want to poo-poo on them. But the problem was, not the problem, but the reason he was elected so many times is because he automatically gained the Muslim vote in Calgary. He barely had to campaign. If you live in Calgary, you know what I'm talking about, that when you divided up the communities in town, the Muslim community traditionally is up in the northeast section of town. That's where their neighborhoods are. They actually have real estate developers that put up for sale signs in front of houses strictly in Arabic because it's an all Muslim community. He got the vote. They would call the elections before they even looked at the other three quadrants of the city because he had that vote secured. However, certain businesses within that community weren't happy with him, and he knew that if he ran again, he wasn't going to win. So he did what any politician usually does and fall on the sword to say, hey, I've had enough. I'm getting out. I'm doing the honorable thing because they just don't want the embarrassment of being ousted by the public. The former mayor recently declared his opposition to Premier Smith's intention to protect children from premature hormone therapy and puberty blockers. Of course, Naheed Nenshi wants that to be accessible to children. Then she criticized Premier Smith's policies announcements as punching down on vulnerable children. There's what should scare everybody right there. If you want to allow this kind of abuse towards children, you're part of the problem. Pierre Poilievre said it best, puberty blockers for kids? And he said it in a way that asks the journalist, are you serious? Is this where we are? This Marxist, disgusting human being wants to allow access to children to mutilate their bodies. And I really don't care if YouTube censors me over that because they've been censoring this channel for ages. They've been pushing down, shadow banning this channel. This is where it scares me. If you look back to the election last year, we'll zoom out, a lot of the province, why won't it zoom out for me? A lot of the province is blue, where you're only seeing orange in this western portion of Banff, Kananaskis, and then Edmonton surrounding area. But when you look at the numbers, it was only 49-38, and people say, well, that's still a huge win for Danielle Smith. Not so, because if we zoom back into Calgary, and Lethbridge as well. Lethbridge voted in favor of NDP. It's a very NDP town. But when we look at Calgary Elbow, where's Elbow? Sorry, guys, I didn't focus in too much. Here's to Calgary Elbow. Samir Kiande took the vote because Arthur Pulowski ran in that neighborhood, that riding, I should say, but he ran against Chris Davis. Now look how close this vote was, 46-49. And that went to the UC or the NDP. When you look at major ridings over here, Calgary Pagan, you see Dennis Ram, if you remember him, he's the one who laughed in the face of the woman who lost her two sons during the pandemic because they didn't get medical treatment, we'll say. Tanya Furr only won out by 2,000 votes. 2,800, 11,877 to 9,088. Those are close ridings. Calgary Fish Creek, 2,000 vote difference from Rebecca Bonesall to Miles McDougall. This is the problem. This was a 2,000 vote split. Look over here. Eric Bouchard taking Lougheed, 9,600 votes to 6,900. Again, about a 2,600 vote difference. They didn't win. The UCP didn't win these neighborhoods by large margins. Even here, Rebecca Schultz. I like Rebecca. I've met with Rebecca in person. We all know Stephanie Cousy lives within the riding of Rebecca Schultz. But still, 13,900 to 10,006. That's not a huge gap. And the problem with Calgary, when you look at Calgary, is that a lot of it is supporting NDP Orange in the last election. Now, I'm not going to say that Danielle Smith hasn't proven her worth as time has gone on since she was elected. I'm not going to say that She hasn't maybe improved on some of those ridings, but when you look at the thin margins of win for the UCP in those areas, and you look at what Naheed Nenshi did in Calgary and the fact that a lot of the older population think that he did a good job, despite the fact that he taxed everyone into oblivion and dropped the ball. And his numbers at the time that he stepped down were not favorable. But when we're talking about all of these key ridings, again, when you're looking at the seats here, 49 to 38 for Danielle Smith to win, it comes down to the major cities. And if Naheed Nenshi gets that leadership space, Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum are going to have their eyes on Alberta. Nenshi showing that he's clearly a puppet for the WEF. Alberta is headed for devastation if Naheed Nenshi wins that vote, unless Danielle Smith can drastically turn those numbers and encourage people to get out and vote. Again, this is a huge, huge problem. And it's one that I think if Naheed Nenshi, I'll tell you right now, I'm not one of those people that says, oh, like in the US, oh, if Trump wins, I'm moving to Canada. But I'll tell you right now, if Naheed Nenshi were to win that election, if he were to oust Danielle Smith, I can assure you, even if I was the mayor of Calgary and won my seat in that election, I would be standing down, packing my bags, and leaving this province. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as much as I want to fight for it, it would be utterly destroyed and ruined under the guise of the World Economic Forum and Naheed Nenshi. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think Alberta's in for a rough trip as much as I do? Again, I don't like to leave anything to chance. I don't believe that, in my heart of hearts, I don't think that he's going to get the votes necessary to take that job. But again, when you're looking at those thin margins from the last election, it makes me very scared that a dormant number of people that hadn't voted in the last election could suddenly decide they're going to get in, they're going to alter and increase the votes for the NDP. Let me know what you guys think down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're clicking that button, turn on your bell for notifications. Join us live here on the channel this Friday and every Friday for Friday Night Fringe, where we go over all these things that happen throughout the week and have a little bit of back and forth with the community. I always look forward to chatting with you guys outside of making these videos. In fact, it's the highlight of my week, and I can't wait to see you all there. I, again, look very forward to it. It all goes down at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, again, here on the channel. Make sure to join us. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.